Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank you all for coming out. You guys look so lovely. I'm going to start this how any good hype man would. I'm going to talk about myself pretty much. My name is Victor Paler. I am a computer science major at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. As some of you may know, UMBC is one of the top 10 national universities in both undergraduate teaching and innovation. It is recognized within the top 3.5% of higher education institutions worldwide. And this is the big one, is known for producing more black MD, PhD graduates than any other US school in the country. That means we beat out Harvard, we beat out Hopkins, and we beat out Morehouse University. And the man at the helm of this operation is President Freeman Hrabowski. He is an accredited author of 3 books, chairman of the National Academy's Committee on Underrepresented Groups, chairman of the Science and Engineering Workforce Pipeline, and he is the chairman of the Baltimore Equitable Society. A lot of people don't know this, but he's also an actor. Well, not yet, but he did have an interview in Spike Lee's documentary, 4 Little Girls. Upon discussing his experiences and participation in the civil rights marches, he had stated, "Even as a child, I had the opportunity to have an impact on my own future." This statement continues to hold true as he has made an impact as a child and continues to make an impact on the lives of others everywhere. I am grateful to be one of those individuals who President Hrabowski has had an impact on. So without further ado, I ask that you put your hands together for the author, the civil rights activist, the president of the UMBC, and the keynote speaker for the night, President Freeman Hrabowski.
Victor is a B+ student in computer science at UMBC. I say it again, a B+ student in one of the hardest majors in America, computer science, competing against the Russians, the Chinese, the Indian, and there he is, brilliant. Give him a big round of applause. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I am so moved tonight. I was listening to the singing of that last song, and I thought about the young men whose father was honored, and I felt them tonight as they thought about their dad. And having lost my parents, I could empathize with them. And as we heard that singing, I couldn't help but remember all the times as a child in church and seeing my parents' faces singing with such hope that I would be okay. And so I say to those young men back there, your dad lives through you. I felt your spirit, and God will always take care of you. Give them both another round of applause. Carroll County, I am moved tonight. You've got so many people here, and it was almost as if it was a time for me to go back through my experience in education from Casey, who's one of the members of the Columbus group here, Knights of Columbus, was actually Casey Stetter. Casey was an undergrad when I was a grad student at the University of Illinois in 1973. And then Blanco was my student at Coppin in 1982. And then you saw Victor right there, so I'm really old, okay? But this is what I want to say. There's so many leaders here tonight. When Susan brought up, Delegate Krebs brought up Delegate Stockdale, I was just touched because of what I know they have done and will do in education. And I remember always representatives from Carroll County, Nancy, and now Susan, and always knowing she was going to support and will support now, Susan, education for people, for our children, for higher education. And while I've been here several times and have such respect for your schools, for your community college, tonight is so special in America because there are few places in our country where I might go and look into the faces of people from every possible avenue, from elected officials to police officers to superintendents to librarians to ministers, and you name it, and of all races. If only America could come to Carroll County and want to be like you, and want to be like, give me a big round of applause for Carroll County. You know, I say about my friends, I am a Democrat, but I grew up with Condi Rice, for example, and Alma Vivian Powell, and we have always said, quite frankly, we may be in different parties, but we love each other because we are Americans. Americans, all right? Give me a hand for the idea of being an American. It's very important. And this is what I want you to think about, that the way we think about ourselves as a society, the language that we use, the way we interact with each other, the values that we hold will be so important. We as a society will become like whatever it is that we really love. And so to the Lewises and to all the other people and to Fabulous Jordan and everybody in here, I want you to think with me for a moment about the 50-year experiment since the 60s. My campus was founded in 1966 today, and it was the first campus in our country, in our state, I should say, founded for people of all races. Every other one at that time, it was either black or white. In fact, how many of you in the room remember black and white TV? Uh-huh. Now, how many of you in the room always had color TV? Young people, if you always had color, that's disgusting. I want you to know that. But the world was so much simpler in many ways. But I tell you that for this reason. I went to jail as a child. Young people, raise your hand if you're under 25. Let me see who you are. Give NAACP a big round of applause for empowering young people to speak and to be here tonight in our community. I'm sitting in the back of church, and I hear this gentleman say, if the children participate in this peaceful protest, all of America will understand that even our babies, our young people, know the difference between right and wrong, and they'll be able to go to better schools. And while we had some wonderful teachers, African-American teachers, we didn't have the resources. And when he said that, I looked up and I said, what's his name? Because I didn't want to be there. Who wants to be in church in the middle of the week, Reverend, right? You know, as a kid, right? And my parents have placated me with the two things I love most, math and eating. I was getting smarter and fatter all the time. Eating M&M's, the good kind with the peanuts. You know what I'm talking about, right? So I'm doing my little algebra, and he said that. And I said, who is that guy? And they said his name was Reverend Martin Luther King. And I was just fascinated because he had said to me something I'd never heard before, that tomorrow could be better than today. That it wouldn't be always that I had to go through the back door or couldn't drink out of a water fountain or I had to get the hand-me-down books after the white kids had used them for years. And while my parents could have bought my books, I couldn't be different, so we had these torn-up books. And who wants that? So all of a sudden I said when I got home, I got to go. He wants me to march. And my parents looked at me and said, absolutely not. And I said to them, you know, you made me go. I didn't want to go. You told me to listen. I kind of listened. And now I want to do what he says, and you won't let me? You guys are hypocrites. At that time, young people, you did not tell your parents they were hypocrites. You did not. Go to your room, boy. But the next morning, they came in. They had been praying all night, and I could tell my mom had been crying. And she said, it wasn't that we didn't trust you. We didn't trust the people who would be over you, because if you march, you're going to jail. I was 12, okay? And I was scared of the dogs and the fowls. We just started it. But somehow I was blessed to think I want a better education. I was not a courageous kid. The only thing I'd ever fought in my life was a math problem. I could attack that math problem, all right? And here's the point, that I did go. It was an empowering week in which we were treated like animals. I was in charge of the little kids who were 9 and 10 crying for their mother all week, and they were encouraging the bad kids to beat us up. It was just bad. It was just bad. But it was empowering because in the middle of the week, Dr. King, outside the jail with all of our parents, children in jail because we wanted a better education. And he said this, what you children do this day will have an impact on children who've not even been born. And there was profundity in that, and I saw my parents trying not to cry. And yet, 50 years later, I could never have imagined being the president of a university with students from 100 countries, where people learn how to work together from around the world, where Victor somehow could be studying at any point with somebody from India or China or Africa or the islands or wherever and excel. And what has been the difference in that period? Because I had never been around anybody but children like myself. And this is what happened. We had the legislation of the 60s, the Civil Rights Act, the Higher Education Act, and the world was changed. What percent of Americans do you think in America in the mid-60s had actually graduated from college? What do you think? Take a guess. Anybody? 5? Somebody else? 10%. 40? Anybody else? 25%. It was only 10%. Only 10% of Americans had a college, four-year college degree in 1965. Okay? Now, think about it for a minute. Again, I told you everything at that time was broken down into black and white. All right? What percent of whites had a college degree? I heard 75, 80, 90. Oh my God. You think a lot of white people don't you? That's a joke. That's a joke. Got to put some humor into this thing. Wait a minute. Why am I doing it? Anybody in the statistics people in education, the superintendent knows you got to disaggregate the data to see how people are doing. Only 11% of whites had a college degree in 1965, and about 2 to 3% of blacks. All right? Now, how many of you in this room are either the first in your family or first generation to go to college? Let me see your hands. In any room, it's going to look just like that. Now, here's the question. What percent of Americans today have a college degree? I heard 50%, 60%, 80. It's only 30% today. Now, what percent of whites? Now you're getting right. Now you're moving in the right direction, right, man? That's a smart man over there. Wait a minute. He's a smart guesser. It's only 38%. 38%. And for blacks, it's about 22%. What's the fastest growing group in our country? Hispanics, right, or Latinx, as we say now, and they are about 15%. Native Americans are below that. What is the best educated group in our country? Asians, exactly, about 55%, okay? Because many of them come to grad school here, and then their children are here. What am I saying? You put it together, 2/3 of American families in 2018 have never had anyone graduate from college, from a four-year college, okay? And today we want to think about our two-year institutions because you can get great jobs on those, and our four-year institutions. You put them together, though, if you put the AA and the bachelor's together, you're still just in the 40s. Now, why do I tell you that? In the 60s, even when people started going to college, the probability of a child from the bottom quarter economically of any race graduating from college was only under 10%. Today, it's still not even 15%. And so the challenge we face as I go around the world looking at education, talking about education, is that while we have been for so long the best educated society in America, the fact is that when you get beyond those in their 40s, we have fallen back to position number 12. And the challenge we face is to help more of our children to get that 2-year or that 4-year degree because it's difficult to make a living, as you know, without some post-secondary education. And so what are the two things I want you to think about? Number one is this. The skills that are most important for everybody, for the families in here, for the children, for the educators, for the elected officials. Number one skill, I've taught math 40 years. The number one skill, reading and thinking. Reading and thinking. If you teach a child to read well, she will always be. You can never take it from her. My mother went from being an English teacher to a math teacher. Anybody remember the new math that came out in the 60s? And she was a guinea pig for that. And the reason it didn't work is that we in universities were too arrogant. We came in thinking we could just tell teachers what to do. We didn't really know the children and their behavior. The teachers know children. Give the teachers of America a round of applause. The teachers of America. And one of the things we've learned now at universities is not to go in there being arrogant, but go in as partners so you can work together. Why do I tell you all that? I want you to think about this, that literally large percentages of our population do not read well enough to say 9th grade level. It is a major challenge. And so I want us to think about those reading skills. And then the other part is so many of the jobs of the future will require something in STEM, in science and technology, engineering and math. And you don't even have to have a computer science major. In English and history and philosophy, my students who take perhaps 9 credits in computer science or information systems get better jobs. Because the name of the game is going to be data science and technology in any discipline. And more, you will see all of what we are doing defined by how we either use or are used by technology. I can take you into a room. We are married to the National Security Agency. We're the largest producer. We've got about 1,100 of our graduates there right now. And so we do a lot of work, and a lot of the students come in from the Baltimore, Washington corridor having worked at NSA for a year or two. And so some of them have security clearances. I can take you into a room, young people on my campus, and if you have a wallet or a purse, I can take you into that room, and that room can talk to you as if it's your best friend. Because from your credit card, okay, or from whatever you've done with electronic, or from your phone, it can know everything about you that you've ever said. Now, that is not the future. That is now. When I was, a lot of times, I was chair of the Obama Commission on Education, so I was getting a chance to be with him in the Oval Office, and you can't take phones anywhere close to that. Just not possible. And when I'm at NSA, I was there this week, you can't, because if you've got your phone with you, you come into my campus place, I can know everything about you you've ever said, ever done, every text. It never is erased. Everything Facebook. So watch what you write, students. Watch what you write. Watch what you put on your Facebook, because you believe it's going to follow you. You get that? Give me a round of applause for that, folks. Watch what you say. Because people are watching you when you least expect it, right? And the other part is this. I want students to think about reading and mathematics. How many in the room love to read? Let me see your hands. We love to read, right? How many of you now, I know you're a good religious group. I know it. I feel it. The old-fashioned, I love it. It's like my hometown. Here's the question. How many of you really love mathematics? Okay, it's not bad. You got about 15%, okay? All right, now at UMBC, Victor will tell you math rocks. It rocks. Do you hear me? I mean, when we had the basketball game, you know what basketball game I'm talking about. Give us a hand for beating UVA. Give us a hand for that. Give us a hand for that. Very nice. Very nice. But here's the deal. 2 of those basketball players had 4.0s. All right, 4.0s. And when the reporter said to one kid, "What are you going to do now?" And he said, "I got to go back to my room and study for a test." Is that nice? And the other kid looks with tears in his eyes and he says, "We stand on the shoulders of the chess team." Is that not nice, right? Because we're always in the Final Four. Give me a round for chess and the importance of brain power is what I want you to think about. Brain power. And so, young people, I'm going to close in a minute because this is a long night of wonderful things. But you can't keep it. How long do you think college students can concentrate before they fade out? What do you think? Students, what would you ask? What did you say? Oh, you know what? She's just eating cheese. That's what we call when you just, you know, the way, you know, she trying to say, well, she wants to impress me. Wait a minute, I get that. Wait a minute. Students, what do you think? How long can you concentrate before you fade out? About 5 minutes, right? So you've already faded out on me, right? I get that. But 8 minutes. And that's why innovation means you can't just lecture at people. You got to ask questions. You got to break it up because people get bored. Anybody. How long can an adult, really educated adult, concentrate before they fade out? Somebody said 3 minutes. He telling me he already faded out too. Wait a minute. But it's about 20 minutes. About 20 minutes. Now, the delegates know this. They have to listen to all these people coming up begging for money, saying the same thing, and they're wonderful about being nice to every one of us. Wait a minute. But you know, sometimes they witch you, and then a moment they got to think about something else. I tell you that for this reason. Young people, here are my lessons for you. I want you to think about the importance of reading and mathematics, okay? I'm going to give you a math problem to take home. I do the international math. I work with children from all over the world. And this is a problem I use with CEOs all the way to children. And we have Korean teachers who come on our campus to look at how we do things. And if I ask the Korean teachers, do your children like math, they don't understand the question. Because it's like saying, do you like to eat? It's a part of their culture. But in our society, if you say that about reading, yeah, but math, most people, and mothers, the worst thing you can do is tell your child you weren't good in math. Because as soon as she has a problem, she's going to say, I'm like my mother. So a lady came up and she said, Dr. Hrabowski, what do you want me to say? I said, just say you still have to learn some more math, right? You know, put it that way. So here's the problem. 6th grade problem, 29 children in the class. 20 have dogs, 15 have cats. How many have both a dog and a cat? I'll say it again. 29 kids in the class. 20 have dogs, 15 have cats. How many have both a dog and a cat? Now, I want you to study it. You can look at it all night. I want you to dream about it. I'm not giving you the answer. Because in other countries, they give people days to solve a problem. The international math is about just that. What group of all the children in the world, 13 and 17-year-olds, when they finish that test, what group is the most confident in saying, we got this? Which country has the children who are most confident? What did I hear? Say it again. China. Usually people say Korea, Singapore. It's America. Never mind the fact that we're in the bottom half from the test. Wait a minute. Well, so the point is we are very confident. We may not know a lot, but we are very confident. Right? But let me tell you, the creativity comes because we do teach our children to be independent and to be able to tell the teacher maybe it's not right. So there's a good part there. But the other part is the word I want to give you. The Chesapeake Bay Retriever's name on my campus is True Grit. It's not about this little kid, this group is smart. And that. It's not about smart. It's about hard work. It's about perseverance. It's about resilience. It's about we fall down, but we get up, okay? And so there's my message to you. Think about that math problem. You can send me an email on it. Tell Victor not to solve it for you, all right? All right? But here is the point to you. I want you to read more. I want you to turn the TV off. I want you to focus on the work, because the people who are going to be the leaders are those who learn how to deal with ideas. And then I'm going to say something that's controversial. In the minority community and many others, we tend to say standardized tests don't count. That's a bad thing to say. Because if you're going to be a doctor or a nurse or a pharmacist or a teacher or an accountant or a fireman, I mean, all these professions require standardized tests. In fact, how many of you have taken the SAT or think about taking the SAT? Students. Guess who wrote the math questions for the SAT? So you can throw eggs at me, all right? You know. And so when people tell you, oh, the test is biased, I think I'm black the last time I looked, all right? I think so, okay? All right? It's about reading skills. That math test is a reading test. Little geometry, but it's word problems. You can never do enough word problems. And these are practical solutions to you. And the final thing is you must believe in yourself. Every one of you. Don't you let anybody else define who you are. Give me a round of applause for that. Don't you let anybody else define who you are. You are so special. Carroll County, let me tell you one last story, and I'm finished. I was walking down the street in Baltimore. My wife and I lived not far in Owings Mills. We loved that area. But we lived in the inner city for years, and in a lovely old home where in a block or two, it was quite middle class and integrated. You got beyond a few blocks, you know how cities are, and it became poor people, poor families. Well, my son always loved all children. And so every night when I'd get home from Coppin, right, I'd have 7 or 8 boys in the house because he invited everybody to come and have dinner with us. But the agreement was they could only come to our home if they were willing to do math problems. Okay? Now, my son was in school at McDonough at the time. These kids were in inner city schools. They didn't have homework. Okay? Eric had 3 hours a night. All right? And I was pushing him some. But those children wanted to feel loved. And they wanted somebody to push them. And so every night they were there. What we're doing, Doc? Where the problems, Doc? It helped me with my kid because they were so excited, right? And so one day I'm walking down the street years later, and a young man comes by, and he has a briefcase. And he says, Dr. Hrabowski. And I look at him, and I look at his face, and I realize I know him. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I have a story to tell you, Doc. He said, you don't know this, but every day we competed among ourselves about who would come out to the car when you came and get your briefcase and bring it into the house. Because we had never seen a man coming home from work with a briefcase. And he said, because I saw you with that briefcase, I found out the only way I could have a job with a briefcase was to get a college education. And he looked at me with tears, and he said, I got that education. There are so many children who don't see hardworking people of every race. Carroll County, you are so blessed. You represent the best of America. America is the richest country in the world. Maryland is the richest state in America, and Carroll County is a very privileged place. It's not to say everybody's rich, but you are blessed to have old-fashioned values. You're blessed to be able to say we can get along across the races, across the parties, and we will come together and support the NAACP because it's helping people. And I challenge you to remember that of those to whom much is given, much is required. God bless you all. Watch your thoughts. They become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. Students, Victor's heard me say this. Your character has everything to do with who you are when you don't think anybody can see you. When your mama's not there, what will you do? Okay? You hear that head. You hear somebody in your head saying, don't do it, right? Thoughts become words. Words become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. Dreams and values. God bless you, Carroll County. Thank you so much. You were excellent, George. Excellent. Thank you.